Sue, welcome to the AI Adoption Podcast. I really appreciate the time you're giving me and my listeners to be with us today. Um, Before we kind of get started, could I just ask you to give us a little bit of background about yourself and also about Tech UK, please?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm Sue Daley. I'm the Director for Technology and Innovation at Tech UK. And Tech UK, we are the trade body organisation representing the UK digital and tech sector as a whole. So we have over 1,000 member companies that make up the Tech UK community. And I lead all our work on current as well as emerging and transformative technologies, which of course includes all things AI and data.
Thank you for that, Sue. And given your vantage point in Tech UK, could you give us an overview of the kind of current state of the tech sector, particularly the AI and the Gen AI, even the agentic AI movements that are currently taking place?
Yeah, that's a big question to
That
start, but
is.
let's give it a go. Well, the tech sector is thriving in the UK right now. We are a huge part of the economy and continuing to grow and scale, and AI is a key part of that. Of course, we are third in the UK, third in the world for AI and that development, adoption and use, behind the US and China. Massive countries, of course. The UK is third, which is great. And our research base helps with that tremendously. Of course, our wonderful universities, of course, comes into that as well. And we have an AI industry that in 2024 was valued at around 73 billion pounds. So it's a huge part of the tech sector, and it's a huge part of our economy overall. In the UK, we are also number one in the world for the number of tech unicorns that we've created. So I think it's 168 right now. Hopefully, we'll see more of those. But in terms of where the tech sector is right now, it's thriving and it's going from strength to strength. And the AI community and the AI industry and the AI sector is a huge part of that. Whether, as you say, whether it's traditional AI, because obviously it's not all Gen AI, whether it's Gen AI, or of course the agentic AI community that is thriving, and also the digital ethics, responsible innovation, the AI assurance market that's coming through as well. So the AI industry is multifaceted as well. It's not just one thing, which makes it a fascinating area to work in, particularly right now.
Absolutely. And I can imagine with the government has just published the industrial strategy. How do you see AI playing a role in kind of moving the industrial strategy agenda forward?
Yeah, it's been a busy time, hasn't it, for announcements? If you're
As
watching this or listening to this right now, we've had a few weeks of a flurry of announcements. What with the spending review for the government during London Tech Week, which was all AI. I'm sure you were there as well, but
Yes.
you couldn't go to any event without being talking about AI, compute infrastructure, AI skills, AI adoption deployment. I'm sure we'll come on to that AI adoption and implementation diffusion across the whole of the economy and society is a key theme and a key trend of the AI conversation in the UK right now, as well as how we get development and research and R&D right in the next AI innovations coming down the line. But I think what we saw in the industrial strategy announcement is, yes, we had a digital and tech sector plan, which of course AI is a key part of that. We saw more information about AI growth zones being created and developed, 500 million for the new AI sovereign unit work that government is pursuing, more money, more announcements around AI funding, AI adoption funding, AI hubs. So a lot more that, in addition to what we saw in the spending review about compute infrastructure, and at London Tech Week about announcements around training 7.5 million people in AI by 2030. All these announcements together mean it's a very exciting time in the UK for AI right now. But what else we saw in the industrial strategy was that in the sector plans that were announced alongside it is that AI being a thread running throughout all of the announcements and about it being an enabling technology of industrial strategy, economic growth and productivity. I think that really chimes with what the Prime Minister was talking about when he launched the AI Opportunities Action Plan back in January, about how do we create the right ecosystem, we support the ecosystem in the UK to thrive and scale and grow. But how do we make sure that we're not just an AI taker, but we're also an AI maker? So it's how do we develop both at the same time? But having AI as that technology, one of the core technologies actually identified in the industrial strategy, including quantum, semiconductors, cybersecurity, advanced communications. AI sits alongside those and therefore is integral, I think, to the plan that's now being put forward. The key thing for all these strategies and plans, and you will know this as well as I do, is now implementation. It's putting them into practice and putting them into action. So that will now really be the focus of the government and the industry. We're keen to support and help with that as well.
And what would you say are some of the key factors then for moving from kind of this planning, thinking about designing phase to actually adopting AI? And if I may plug the podcast, this is the AI adoption podcast. So go ahead, Sue. What's your take? What are the key factors?
Well, you're in the right place for that conversation because that is the conversation, right? We all know that AI is a transformative technology. It has
Yeah.
been for many years, right? But in terms of how it's developing right now, and it's developing fast, and you know, we're of course the Gen AI revolution is continuing. The agentic AI. I mean, London Tech Week agentic AI was everywhere, and it's really the talk of the town right now. But what's next? And perhaps we'll come on to that in terms of what we could see going further. But adoption is really where the benefits of AI will be seen, right, across our economy and across the society. So how do we help public sector bodies to understand what AI adoption means to them? Because it will mean different things to different people. How do we help teachers and the education system to see what transformative benefits AI could have for them? And I would say for companies of all shapes and sizes across the whole of the UK, we need to, I think, key for adoption is tell that story, get that narrative right, and get people to understand what AI within their business could mean for them. And that's, I think, key is telling that story. It's getting examples out. It's talking about not just the technology for all technologists that are watching and listening. You're important. We love you. But it's about putting that into action and explaining the real world benefits, the ROI, the value that it can bring. And if we can tell that story and bring that to life, I think more people will and more organizations will kind of go, like, my competitor's doing it, so how can I do it? But then it also comes with that, can I trust it? Is it safe? Is it secure? Do I have the people in my business that if I invest in it, I can get the return of investment? So can they use it? Can they write a prompt? Do I need a data expert or an engineer to help me implement this? And in some cases they may do, and in other cases it might be using AI that's already been developed into the products and services that they're already using. It's just then getting them to turn it on and starting to use it. So I think part of this is around education and awareness, and it's part about, and we as an industry have a job to do here of getting out and talking to people and creating a buzz and excitement about maybe AI in the workplace. Because I don't know about what you think, but I think AI in our everyday lives and in the more the consumer side is happening, right? So it's how do we translate that into the business community as well?
Yeah, I mean, I know both from my own personal experience, but also just talking to friends. Most of my friends have ChatGPT open kind of in a side window somewhere, and they will dip into, if it's not ChatGPT, it could be Claude, it could be any one of those
Of course.
facilities, apps which are available. And so you're right, people are dipping into it, not just in their personal life, but also supporting some of their business activities. But the sector itself is moving so quickly.
Yeah.
Where do you see the developments? Where are the major developments do you think over the next, say, 3 to 5 years that will help with adoption?
God, asking me all the tricky questions today, are you? It's like, you know, do I have a crystal ball? I don't have a crystal ball. And actually, even 3 to 5 years, is that too long,
Is
right?
that
Is
too
that
long?
too
Yeah.
far into the future? These things are moving incredibly quickly. Ideas are coming, products and services are being developed in matters of months, not matters of years now anymore. So
Yes.
it's how, and that's new for us as an industry, right? And I think if you think about why we're able to do that. A lot of people say, well, why is it now? Why is this happening now? Well, we've built the foundations that enable this to happen, right? Whether it's the world leading universities, whether it's the research community that we have, that it's the compute infrastructure that we have, how computing, now is more prevalent than ever before. People have got the tools and the ingredients to play around with this and to come up, and which is great. It's really, really exciting. So look, AI will only get better and will only get faster, of course. We're seeing that already. I think what we will see in the next year, 2 years, 3 years is, and a lot of projects, a lot of pilots that we're still seeing. I think I was talking at a podcast at the beginning of the year, and I said, look, I think this is the year where we'll move from pilots and playing with Gen AI to actual real scale implementation. And a fellow speaker challenged me on and said, and I think a lot of organizations are still in that sandpit, they're still in that piloting, they're still in that project zone. What we need to get to is, and this is key to adoption deployment, is scaling up those projects and pilots and moving forward. And I think we will see that. We'll see projects and people trying out, which is understandable, trying out these products and services to understanding how they scale and how greater efficiencies, greater productivity can come from the scaling. So not just the marketing unit using an agent to help them support with meeting notes, but the whole organization helping support with meeting notes, which frees people up to do other things or to focus on new products or new customer engagement. So I think on the technical side, I think we'll still have the large language models, and that will increase in development and diffusion. We're seeing a lot more small language model discussions as well. So coming down into that kind of niche, what do organizations need to fix individual problems, as well as potentially large language models to help at scale. But I think we'll see also the pilots and projects scaling into real world deployments as well across organizations.
So just unpack for listeners, when you refer to small language models, what do you mean? Yeah, could you unpack that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so we're seeing, large language models are huge amounts of data, huge amounts of compute to provide a service, to provide a ChatGPT, but others are of course available. I have to say that as the industry. But
Yeah.
small language models, if you think about organizations, they're kind of looking at what's the problem, what's the individual business problem or business issue that we're trying to solve, and then working with industry to develop a model that is unique, relevant to them and that issue, and then running that perhaps on a large scale AI provider that can provide that compute and that training power or data center that is unique to them, so it gives them the answers, it gives them what they need to address that individual problem. And sometimes that can mean it needs less data to run, it may need less power to run, it may be a model that can be trained quicker and therefore um, can be implemented quicker. But it's thinking about it in terms of what's unique to an organization and what's the problem, what's the issue that they're trying to solve. And we're seeing more of that emerging in the part of the conversation of an organization's looking at, to be honest, a bit of a mixed model of, well, I might need a large language model because we're trying to do this as a firm, or actually I'm only trying to solve this business problem or this issue, and how can a more niche focus model help me to do that, and how could an industry partner help me to develop that?
Great, thank you for that, because in this sector there is so much jargon. So thank you for explaining that. Can I just go back to something else that you said, and you're right to pick me up on this, which is, so I framed the question around, what's likely to happen over the next 3 to 5 years, and you absolutely right. The rate at which the sector is changing and the technology is developing, we're talking months.
Yeah.
But in some ways, I see a bit of a conundrum there, because on the one hand, we want companies to invest and to adopt AI, but you can almost imagine boards, and particularly finance directors, saying, yeah, you want this big investment in AI, but we could kind of invest in this part of AI and then find actually that everything's moved on, and that
Yeah,
investment has suddenly gone not entirely to waste, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
We're now having to kind of pivot and invest in a different kind of AI. How do you think companies should be addressing this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And how would I answer that? I suppose I'm thinking two ways here. I think there is and look, this is a challenge for any organization of
Yes.
pace and speed, right? Organizations clearly don't want to get this wrong. They don't want to, do the wrong thing. But I think there might be more of a requirement for organizations to think a bit faster and to move a bit quicker, right? So how can they, and maybe it is setting up a team or a unit within the organization to try these things out and to experiment, right? So yes, pilots and projects that can lead to experimentation and can do it quickly at pace, right? Because as you say, let's have a pilot for a year and then let's see if we implement this might be a bit late or might be a bit slow in this current climate. So how can organizations be a bit more agile in terms of, and how can industry help with that, right? To be agile and to be a bit more flight of foot in terms of how they're testing out these products, how they're playing, how they're experimenting, and then how do they move to scale. But also, I think the second part of it is maybe, and look, maybe this is just it may be, and we'll have to see, maybe we'll come back in 3 to 5 years to test this. It might just be a shift in the way that industry now has to work of, okay, we've bought a product or we've procured a service, tick in the box, now we live with that service and we move on. And maybe it's not that anymore. Maybe it is, okay, we've procured a service or we're using a certain AI service, but we still have to keep that experimentation. We still have to keep an eye on where the market and where the
Yeah.
developments are moving to make sure that the service that we've procured, and of course industry can help with this as well, remains up to date and remains relevant and remains appropriate to what we're doing. So maybe it's a bit of a shifting landscape there in terms of the way that procurement is done and the way that organizations themselves, obviously working with the industry, have to keep up to speed and up to pace as well with as AI developing. The good news is though that I think yes, there is always organizations that will want to bespoke product or service. And of course, those are available. But what we are seeing is AI solutions, AI technologies becoming more embedded into the tools and services that organizations are already using and using on a day-to-day basis. So if I'm an R&D or innovation company, I might need a large language model or small language model. Or if I'm a healthcare provider, I might need something bespoke. But on the day-to-day tools and software that I'm already using, AI is being built in and being added into it. So, and in a way that we saw with cloud, right? That this means software as a service, that they're updated and they're kept up to date and they are kept relevant to, what technical developments. Then I think that will enable organizations to keep on pace as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's, if I look at the UK economy and you look at the big companies, and very often they've got the resources to put a team together that's going to look at AI and how it's not just being adopted, but then what are the changes that are coming through and how those changes are going to be absorbed as the technology changes. So if I could ask you to maybe reflect on the SME sector, because I think they're struggling as it is in the current economic climate. They're very often tight in terms of cash flow. The people running the business are very often absolutely up to their eyeballs and just kind of keeping
Running
the
a
wheels on.
business, right?
Exactly, they're running a business.
Yeah.
What can be done, do you think, to ensure that the SME sector come along on this AI journey?
Yeah, it's absolutely fundamental, right? And actually, if you think about the transformative power of these technologies that we have today, let alone what might come down the line, agentic AI, right? I mean, it can be another part of their workforce. It can be another tool, another a really powerful productivity enabling tool for SMEs to use. So how do we help them to do that? I think it's partly that and this is hard, right? Because they are not a sector in themselves, right? So how can we help tell the story and help not educate, inform and help maybe demystify some of this as well to SMEs? I think it's really, really important to do. And obviously they are scattered all the way around the country. Now, in the AI Opportunities Action Plan, government announced creation of AI champions.
Mhm.
And we're yet to hear more about that. But I think there's a possible role for AI champions here. If they are aligned with particular sectors and industries, how could the AI champion be a conduit, even maybe a lightning rod to help particularly those organizations that need help. And as you say, those SMEs definitely need help on this AI journey. How can the national champions play a role? Also, we saw Industrial Strategy announce AI hubs, an AI adoption fund. So again, we're waiting now for a bit more devil of the detail of what these announcements will mean, what they'll look like, and we're really keen to help government to kind of understand what these announcements that how we could put them to work. So I think there is definitely a focus of, who needs most support, who needs most help, how do we reach those SMEs who, you're absolutely right, they are busy keeping the lights on, they're busy keeping running their business, doing payroll, doing this. But AI, we all know, I think we instinctively know that AI tools could help them in that. But then it's how do we help them to understand the potential, and then how do we help them to do that, as you say, in addition to everything else that they're doing. But I think one part that we're still seeing is that a lot of SMEs, do they have the digital foundation? Do they have the digital tools already that, let's face it, that they need to have in place to be able to realize the benefits of AI? So if a SME doesn't have the data, doesn't have all their data digital, or doesn't have enough data that is digital to put into an AI model, it's just, if how useful is it therefore to invest in that solution if they are not going to be able to get the return that or the output from it if they've only got limited data going into it. So I think there's still that, are we helping SMEs to get the digital basics right, the digital foundations right? Because only then will they be able to really realize the full potential of investing in or using or trying out AI solutions.
I fully agree. You then put that layer of change in the technology itself that we were speaking about a few minutes ago on top of that, and you can well understand why SMEs would be even more sensitive to kind of committing a big investment into a particular AI solution, only to find that, one, they can't use it for the reasons you've mentioned, which are around the lack of data, but also then to find that perhaps the technology itself has moved on. So what can the government do? Is the government doing enough? Are policymakers doing enough, do you think? Or what else could they do to support SMEs to kind of come along on this AI adoption journey?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of government looking at digital adoption in the round, and we're expecting to see more on that soon. And I think there is, as I said, some of the proposals that are now put forward, either in the AI Opportunities Action Plan or in the Industrial Strategy. It's now perhaps looking at, as we're talking about, it's about implementation, it's about putting into action. What does that mean? How do we make sure that SMEs are a key part of that? And for example, how do we use potentially AI champions if they're sector related? Perhaps they may need to be regionally focused. How do we help them reach out to or help those SMEs to understand the potential? Where I've seen that really, really hit home is where you bring companies together. So I was at a roundtable on AI adoption, actually, where we had a number of companies, not large companies. They weren't small, but probably, the medium size, which is, a key, beating heart of the UK economy.
Absolutely.
And a couple of them were explaining how they were already using AI, so a bit of computer vision on their manufacturing line, or a bit of, it wasn't agentic AI at the time, but probably machine learning and data analytics in their customer service, or a chatbot in their customer service. And you could suddenly see the others around the table going, well, if they're doing that, potentially, competitors or peers, how could I use that? So it's telling that story, it's that peer-to-peer learning. And I think SMEs really, generalization here, but I think a lot of businesses really find useful and get a lot from. So it's how do you then create that kind of opportunity for that peer-to-peer learning of, well, if they're doing it down the road in Halifax, why can't I do it down the road in Bradford? That kind of thing. So how do we create those opportunities? And I think that's not a silver bullet, but I think helping organizations to learn from each other. But to be really clear, I think also helping SMEs will be that the fact that AI is becoming embedded into the tools and solutions and the software and the digital solutions that they're already might be getting from their suppliers and their 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 um their providers, right? So
Yeah.
it's how is it becoming part of just the everyday tech that we all use, whether it's through email or whether it's through our CRM systems or our HR systems, it's becoming embedded. So you would hope in a way that it then becomes part of, oh yeah, well, I use that tool all the time. So
Yeah.
now I use it. Now I see the benefits of it. What more can I do with it? And
Yeah.
it's building it up from that. So I think that is, and I think that's a difference. I don't know. I think it feels to me a difference from when we were having, say, the same conversation about cloud. Maybe even 10 years ago, cloud felt like a huge infrastructure change project. And don't get me wrong, if you want to really transform your business through AI, change your strategy, change your workloads, that is itself is probably a similar change management process. But for organizations that just want to do what they're doing better and more efficiently and more effectively, the AI that's being embedded into the software and the tools that they're already using may be the best starting point and maybe the best actual indicator for SMEs of, oh, well, actually, that's really useful. That's really helped my business. So what more can I do?
Uh, I think you're right in terms of in providing this kind of support, and clearly the government, I think, are doing quite a bit, and through the industrial strategy, the opportunity AI opportunities action plan. There's a lot going on there. Taking it from a slightly different perspective, what do you think tech companies, particularly the hyperscalers, what do you think these tech companies can do, again, to support organizations to adopt AI?
Well, they're doing a lot. And I would say not just the hyperscalers, but all, the large multinational, as well as UK-based companies,
Yes.
they're all playing a role. They all want to help see this happen, right? Everybody realizes this is a kind of game changer and this is a moment in time where it's amazing. There's so much excitement and so much enthusiasm about how do we unlock this potential? How do we help organizations to do that? Now, businesses are obviously helping on a number of levels, whether it's about creating centers of excellence up and down the country, whether it's about creating opportunities for companies to come and demonstrate and to show what AI can do for them. I think a key announcement, though, as well, we saw during London Tech Week was again, it's about government and industry working together as well. Remember the announcement in London Tech Week of industry coming together to say that they will train 7.5 million
Yes.
people in AI by 2030 in the UK. Now, that is tremendous because organizations are, of course, saying, well, if I'm going to invest in AI, I need to know that my workforce can use it and need to know that my workforce will be able to use it on a day-to-day basis so that my investment is well, my investment sees returns. So that is a clear sign from industry. There's 7.5 million people by 2030 trained in AI by industry and government working together. And that's a clear sign, I think, and commitment that industry is keen to help organizations to make sure that they can deploy and use AI most effectively.
Yes, and the skills are absolutely vital because clearly, as these AI technologies start rolling out and start getting adopted, one of the big concerns is around what the impact is going to be on jobs, and clearly there are going to be jobs that will be created, but also that some jobs will be lost. What are your reflections on that in terms of how AI will kind of impact jobs and the future of work?
Yeah, it's a key issue, right? It's a key part of the conversation we have to get right. When the Gen AI moment happened a couple of years ago, I was talking to a lot of people about, 'cause there was a lot of fever around it. Do you remember there was a lot of kind
Yes.
of like, oh, a lot of calls for pauses and calls for what's this going to impact, every aspect of society. And we were trying to be a bit of that calm voice of common sense and kind of go, look, we need to look at short-term issues that we need to address right now. medium-term issues that we know are coming down the line, and then very long-term, and maybe that's the existential, will this be the end of mankind and humankind? Further, that's a long-term conversation that, yes, of course we need to have, but not right now. And I think the nature and the change of or the impact of the workforce is, of course, a bit of a short and a medium-term conversation, right? Short term is as organizations start adopting, start deploying this technology, how do we make sure that organizations are equipped to have that conversation with their employees?
Yeah.
The technologies that we have right now, whether it's Gen AI, whether it's an agent or a tool that you're using in your organization, it's very much augmenting the human. It's very much working alongside the human, right? And I've had a few conversations with folk recently where they're talking about how do we train? We now need to start thinking about how do we train our managers to help support their workforce or the people that they're managing, but also how do we maybe need to train them to manage the agentic AI that's also in their team, right? So it's becoming converged. It's part of the team. It's part of the structure. So it's augmenting humans. Now, of course, as we've seen in every technological development, the nature of many jobs may change, and we may see jobs disappear, and we may see new jobs developing, right? The AI assurance market,
Yeah.
algorithmic, auditing and auditors and things like that. We'll see new jobs coming through. So technical jobs might go, but new technical jobs might emerge. So how do we understand where technology is going and where the shift is going, and therefore how are we and how are universities teaching and training the next generation is really, really going to be key. I think that's the conversation we need to have. But I think what in all of this, and probably that's more of a more medium-term conversation as we look ahead. But in all of this, I think key is how do we help organizations to have the conversation with the workforce, with employees? How do we bring them into this change, right? Into this AI journey? How do we bring them in so that and it's the same in the wider society, people feel like AI is something that's not being done to them, but it's being done with them, right?
Yeah.
So it's how are they part of that change? And then if it is that their nature of their job is changing, or how do we reskill, upskill, retrain the workforce for the AI era that is to come, right? And how do we think about that now? So it's a bit of a short, medium, long term conversation as well.
Yeah.
Definitely something that it is in the focus of the government. We saw that in the AI Opportunities Action Plan. We saw that in the announcement that we've seen recently, but it's definitely something that we all, and I would say universities as well as industry, civil societies, and consumer groups and unions, particularly, we all need to be part of that conversation, because it's going to need all of us to think this through. But I think it's helping people to understand how AI can help support them in their job right now. It's about augmenting. It's about that AI agent working alongside you and supporting and helping you. And I think that's we'll see that more coming through. But it's definitely a conversation that we need to be having.
So thank you for a wide-ranging discussion on AI adoption. You've provided some fascinating insights, not just in terms of where the tech sector is, where government policy, and some of the things that the government's doing to move adoption forward. I know from working with you, from working with colleagues at Tech UK, you all are doing a huge amount in the space of AI and to help the adoption agenda forward. I'm very proud to be part of that work together with you and Tech UK. So massive thank you for joining me on the AI Adoption Podcast for this episode.
Absolute pleasure. And it's a thrill to be working with you as well, because that's what we need, right? We all need to work together on this huge opportunity, huge potential. And I think we all want to get this right, and we all want to unlock the potential of AI. So really, really looking forward to working together. And let's revisit this and see where we are in a year. And it's going to be a busy next year, that's for sure.
Let's make that a date. We'll do the same thing this time next year.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you so much.